Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of our tuning adventure here in the guide series. So I promise you episode 1 will be the longest of the bunch, and we'll be rapid firing the rest of them here. So we'll begin with the basics. What's the gearing? How do we use it in racing, drifting, rally, off-road, and what's the fastest way to tune? What's the best way to tune? So here is our stock R33 GTR Skyline, fully stock, and today we're gonna start properly upgrading. So gearing refers to the gears in the transmission. What's the fastest way to tune it is by using a sport transmission, and only using the final drive to tune the gearing. Is this the best? No, in my opinion stock gear ratios of almost every car in the game is bad. But that doesn't mean they're unusable, that just means I don't like them. So if you do not want to learn tuning every single gearing, I'll quickly skim over what you will be doing and need. So for those who don't want to tune every gear ratio, even though it's very simple, let's start with what you need. You need to have a sport or race transmission. You need to know the top speed, and we can work from there. Let's begin. So let's start here. So as we see, the sport transmission only allows us to tune the final drive, and we currently have a 5-speed transmission. Now the bottom right graph is where you should do most of the big tuning, then look on the left for the numbers. But this is idiotically simple for sport transmissions. So the 5th gear is currently past this red line, giving us a top speed of 157.2 miles per hour. So firstly we'll use the final drive and slide it towards acceleration until the 5th gear is on the graph, with only the end of it going slightly past the board / on the end of the red line above, like so. And that's going to give us a top speed of 160 miles per hour flat. So I like to call this the theoretical top speed. Here's why. Yes, you will and can hit that top speed, but it's going to take you so long to reach that top speed you will never use it in a normal race. Therefore you do not need that much top speed. As a rule I like to start with taking roughly 5 to 20 miles per hour off of that top speed. So 160 minus 10 is 150 miles per hour. So we'll slide the final drive towards acceleration until we roughly get 150 miles per hour. And there is 150 miles per hour. Now we can take it on the track we plan to do with it, or just drive it around. Now if you do not have a track planned, maybe you do want to go slightly above that. But this is the thing about doing your own tuning. Let's say I take this car on a race and I find out it has a insanely giant hill run and I'm just topping out because I have it set up to short. I can change it. I don't have to stay with this tune, and I don't need to download another entire tune just for the gearing. But in this case, I think this is fine. We'll take it on our little race track, then we'll talk about the in-depth gearing. As you see, I have as much acceleration and top speed with that style of gearing, but it could be a lot better. Now the full tune style and theories for gearing. Now firstly we need to think about two things. First one is, can we afford the race transmission within our PI limit? For example, this is B class 625 and the top of B class is 700, so yes, we can afford it PI wise. Second thing we need to think about is how many gears do we want. So minimal we want the race transmission, But as you can see, the special thing about Forza Horizon 5 is that we have a lot more than just stock street sport and race transmission. In this car we have stock, sport, side note that means this car comes stock with a street level transmission, race. Then we have race transmission, 7-speed race transmission, 8-speed race transmission, 9-speed race transmission, 10-speed and drift transmission, 4-speed. These refer to the gears, such as the sport transmission only had 5 gears making it a 5-speed. So for example I'm going to put the race transmission 10-speed in, and we'll talk about it more. Now what is the difference between a 6-speed and a 10-speed? Wait, and you can theoretically stay in the power band for longer with more gears. Every car has a power band. This refers to the peak power RPM. But I don't tune this way, I don't use science, I use feel. So firstly we're going to pretend that this is a 4-speed transmission, for example. Let me set this up quickly. So if this was purely a 4-speed transmission it would look something like this. Now there is nothing wrong with this, but the issue lies in the power band. Let me show you. So because the lack of gears, that means I had to tune it for the power band it can handle. Being a much longer first gear, so the car needs to ride the clutch out for longer, and it has less top speed. This is acceleration from one end to the other with a 4-speed transmission. Then we'll compare it to a fully set up 10-speed to show you the difference. So roughly 28 seconds. Now let's try the same thing with a 10-speed transmission. That time it was roughly 26 seconds, but this shows you the difference for utilizing the power band. That is the only difference, but this could technically be slower than a 7-speed transmission because too much shifting is also a bad thing, technically. But anyways, so now I'll show you how to set this up properly. So we're going to start by tuning a 6-speed transmission because I'll be honest, a 10-speed transmission can be a lot to handle at first. But once you understand the basics it'll quickly become easy. So firstly we have 6 gears to work with. So again let's find the theoretical top speed if we don't already know it. We do, it's 160 miles per hour. So there is 2 ways we can go about this. I'll show you the 5-speed method and then I'll show you my way. So the 5-speed method has to do with a realistic top speed, then a overdrive. This is for the 6-speed transmission. But this is kinda how Forza presets up the car. As you can see, this 5th gear is already the 1-to-1 ratio, and the 6th gear is a overdrive gear, a ratio lower than 1-to-1, also known as 1.00 ratio. So simply we'll start by taking 6th gear and only tuning the 5 gears firstly. So we want to set our 5th gear roughly 10 to 20 miles per hour below the theoretical top speed being 160 miles per hour. So let's put this down to 150 miles per hour. Next we actually need to do some testing. We want to see where this first gear is already set, so let's do so now. Funnily enough it already is set half decently, but for an all-wheel drive car it feels like it's spinning a little too much. So with all-wheel drives there's 2 ways of doing your first gear, a short and long way. This is already set at the short way, that being a first gear that when you launch it stays at the highest RPM while accelerating the fastest, but not for long. We're going to adjust this a bit towards speed because we do not want to spin that much. And that's what I'm looking for. This is a gear that spins a little bit off the line, bogs down a little bit but then accelerates out of it. Now for example I'm going to show you a first gear that is too long, and what that looks like. As you can see, it doesn't get off the line at all. It bogs down way too quickly, doesn't spin, but it doesn't accelerate. This is the long method, and this car is kinda a bad example for first gears because with this low power there's only a bad and good way of setting first gear, but there is some differences you can make between them. Now we simply set up our curve. Now when I mention the curve, we need to make sure that the gear we shift into doesn't go below the RPM of the gear before. I'll demonstrate the good way first, which is how we currently have it set up. Now if your car does this, this is bad. That will cause a large lack of acceleration, and when you downshift, I actually money shifted at the start there lol, so you seen, when I shifted into second gear it goes from 9000 RPM to 7000 RPM, and from second to third it went from 9000 RPM to 6400 RPM, you want it to do the opposite, so from first gear we want to shift from 9000 RPM to 6100 RPM, then from second to third we want to shift from 9000 RPM to 6800 RPM. As long as you keep the curve in mind it becomes very simple, just remember each gear should be shorter than the one before, like this example. But now our sixth gear doesn't have a roll yet, as it's the same ratio as fifth gear, so simply add it in after. Keep in mind our realistic top speed is fifth gear, meaning at the minimum we have 150 miles per hour of our theoretical 160 miles per hour. Now we do our 160 miles per hour with our sixth gear while keeping the curve. And now you can see every gear is usable, and this is the 5-speed method with a 6-speed transmission. Now we're going to set up my method, so we already have our first gear, we're simply going to make some adjustments. Instead of doing the 5-speed method, I use 6th gear as my 1:1 ratio, and simply cut that top speed off, so I'll actually be tuning this for 155 miles per hour, so follow along to see how I tune my gears. It's that simple. Gearing only looks hard in Forzaa, it is very easy to do. Now I quickly wanna go over rally and drifting, as this was road racing. Rally isn't different at all really, the only thing is drifting is kinda tricky, and honestly needs its own video, but we can squeeze it in here real quick. What's the difference between this and a rally setup or a off-road setup? Absolutely bloody nothing. Simply take this final drive, as most rally courses are quite short with a lot of turns, so our max speed might turn into more of a 135 miles per hour to get the most out of each gear. But since we're tuning it ourselves, this is easy. We just slide this towards acceleration, and that's our short track / rally setup. Now for drifting this changes quite a bit. Let me set up a drift build. Okay, so first, we're not doing the 4-speed. Do not use the drift 4-speed transmission. I don't know what these devs are thinking, But no, now I'm going to tune this for manual without clutch, as I'm sure most of you don't use clutch, so we'll begin with this. I don't know what these ratios are, but they're trash, so we'll work from first gear forwards. Now if you want to use a 1-to-1 ratio, feel absolutely free to. I'm not going to, because if you don't know, the secret behind reverse drifting is that final drive. It controls the reverse gear, but we're not here for that, we're here for all the gears. So firstly, this is a drift car, the objective is spinning. That doesn't mean we want to have the shortest gear ratios ever and not gain speed. That just means we really need to focus on the power band, and if you are learning gearing without clutch, you already have an advantage, as if you learn without clutch, once you turn on clutch you realize clutch literally just makes it easier to stay in the power band. RPMs getting too low, press the clutch in, give it full throttle, let the clutch out, and now you're fine. So we'll start with first gear here, so we'll set this on the third vertical line going upwards as a base, just to see what it's like. Now if it spins like this, that doesn't mean it's too short, that just means drift car lol, but ideally your first gear should be the gear you use for 10 to 25 miles per hour drifting, and it should not stall at low RPM even with turbo cars. And it doesn't, so this is fine. Now for example, if it does this, you have too long of a first gear. As you see, it's just stalling. We want our first gear for extremely slow speed drifting, but you should play with it. You wanna see how long you can get that first gear before it starts stalling at very low RPM and not letting you drift. Now I was going to do the rest off camera, then show you what it looks like, but I reached the 10 mile per hour stall speed, and this is a good time to mention the stall speed. You do not want it to stall if you're going 10 mile per hour or faster, as 10 miles per hour is about as slow as any type of racing or driving will get. So for this build this is the perfect first gear, because the 10 mile per hour stall speed. Now for the rest of the gears there is two methods. The first method is going to be the one I want you to use. The second is going to be the one I personally use. But remember, I use manual with clutch, so mine isn't as good for without clutch as a tune designed for without clutch. But this is simple, so we need to figure out what RPM we can shift to while drifting before it stalls, so we can stay above that so it doesn't stall when we shift up to gain more speed. And you see that, it doesn't stall but it doesn't pull either, and second gear should take us as low as 30 miles per hour. There is two possible fixes for this. Firstly, we could adjust our first gear, make it shorter and make second gear shorter, or just make second gear short, as we're already halfway on the graph, and this is a lot of miles per hour in this gear. I'm going to make second gear shorter, but keep in mind you might come back to this any time to adjust per track, or if it just doesn't feel right. And now we make our curve. Now you may see that sometimes it loses power on the shifts. That is completely normal. Also, I don't think I put the race clutch in this car, but again, we're not worried about this top speed, we're mostly worried about the power in each gear. Also, I noticed I actually made a mistake. Can you spot it? Now if you can't spot it, look right here. My third gear doesn't go down enough RPM, and might actually be more RPM than second, so let's fix that and try it again. And now it feels fine, but now I'm quickly going to show you my method, and it does break a rule, but I have my reasons, and do as I say not as I do. Okay, now let's tune the transmission the way I tune it. Real quickly, I was kinda worried I would break my record. I don't think I am, but I did wanna say this is a front wheel drive car, This Honda Prelude, nope, not rear or all-wheel drive swapped, this is front-wheel drive. If I do break it I don't think I am, but that's front-wheel drive. And that is gearing tuning for every situation. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell for post notifications so you don't miss the next episode, and leave any questions, comments or concerns in the comment section below, or be sure to join the Discord link tree in the description for every link that we currently use. Thank you again for watching. I truly hope this series helps you learn tuning, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.